Hi. Um, Before that, would really like to ask, apakah ada timer yang bisa ditunjukin gitu? Autistic, I cannot just hear the bell and gak reflect sama aku. Enggak, dititip ke ini, pembina. We think campus and university in general is only as good as its alumni. We don't care how many research you put out, we don't care how good quality of research you are always going to be seen first and foremost by the quality of the people that you put out. We think that this is the main crux of this debate, whether or not we argue that when we put up people and students to work directly in a company that we are part of their field, is it going to be better for campus or is it going to be better for the university students at the same time, right? We think at the same time, we should talk about the students and how they also want to be educated. At the same time, they want to be open to work fields, right? This is very different from general education because the main goal of students, uni students going into campus is because they want to work and apply their knowledge, right? Few characterizations. We think uni is specifically aimed for work. It is a value based on alumni's contribution towards the world, and that's going to be seen as the quality of the campus. They have a social contract, we think, from society and to government, rather than to teach people, because that's an inherent responsibility, but we think they have a social contract to make sure that the people they put out are good quality human resources that can be applicable for everyone, right? Therefore, we think this debate is on an external benefit of alumni to be good and work good, or an internal of publications quality and whether or not it is more impactful towards the campus, right? Our stance is clear. We want these students to work, internship, but not. I'm going to try and bring two things here. Firstly is on terms of values of campus alignment, and secondly on terms of its applicability. We think in first one, when we're talking about value of campus alignment, it's important to talk about how public views campus in general, right? We think people in general, when they go into a university, they pick it, or when government values these kinds of accreditation for this campus, they don't really care much about your research or publication, but more so whether or not these researches can applicate people into being a good alumni. We don't think this is the case. In status quo, both people in general society and also students lose interest because research don't do anything at all to contribute to them in a direct way. Because this is only an academic process that only implicates whether or not they know that their study is applicable towards a certain types of tests or whether towards a certain types of capstone project, right? This is not applicable real life skill. Work and internship operates on two angles in here. One, it paints our campus as a good campus that can give out good quality students, right? But secondly, it also impacts work field in that it consistently provides a leeway for students to always interact with that. But thirdly, another addition is that irrespective of whether or not the student is bad at the first time they do internship, the inherent quality of students will always by default increase because the fear that when they don't work good, they will get bad grades. The difference in opposition is that when they fear these kinds of consequences, it'll only applicate in an academic context in the way that they learn for they'll learn for their tests and whatnot, right? We think this is very different when you actively learn and know the consequences inside the company or inside the work field that you are aiming for, and inside of a campus that only values you on whether or not your research is good or whether or not your thesis is good. But second layer is on terms of stigmatization. We think bad research, only done for the sake of finishing it, is something that is the main issue in current status quo educational system of college, right? They do a lot of research, thesis, skripsi, apapun itu, and they just give out the very basic minimum because they understand that for them to graduate, it is enough for them to do a bare minimum research as long as it's done. Our side, we have to work to get good grades. This implicates it in two things. One, student will by default be better because they have to work for it. But secondly, campus's values will not always be contingent on whether or not the students understand a material from a set of academic perspective. They are going to have to applicate it for that to be valued in the real life, right? But third and last layers on this end. What is the value and why should it be fulfilled? A, we think education in context of college is real world contribution. You will always go against your own values and impact when you prioritize the idea of academics over real world applications. What does this do and what does this argument prove, right? This disregards external possibilities of good research as irrelevant in this debate because irrespective of the quality of the researchers or whatever it is still not applicable and it is still not represent how these students will go into a better work field or will perform better after they graduate, right? So, moving on to my second argument. Talking about applicability of both campus and student. We think on both of these ends, they are going to be benefited much more when they are in comparison to when they just do research. Right? Firstly, let's talk about the students. They need experience. We actively understand that regardless of whether or not you perform well in campus, current status quo world needs experience. That's why there's such a big increase in organizations like IISMA and whatever it is, right? These people are people giving experiences and opening up fields of work experience for you to actively do it. But this is contingent on whether or not the organization is good. We cut the middleman. We make sure that the campus is the one providing it, therefore making it by default a good option for a student to give it, right? But is this contingent on freedom, right? We think that opposition will value whether or not students will feel that their freedom is impeded. We think students already know by default when they go into a campus, they sign a contract that these students sign a social contract that these students will have to work whatever it is the campus regards to them as importance. The difference in opposition is that there is basically no experience other than externalities and whether or not campuses and whether or not these organizations or these external parties can give it to them. Two problems with this. One, notice that not all students can perform well to the point that organizations can accept them. But secondly, not all students actually have the incentive for it. We think that if we were to take their freedom, regardless of whether or not they want to work in their first semester, second semester, it's still fine. Because at the end of the day, educational system needs to prioritize the quality of their students, right? Irrespective of what the students think, whether or not they want to do it, they have to do it on our side by default, making sure that they are of good quality. We think on second layers ends, it is beneficial towards the campus under a few reasons. One, of course, on public views have said, but secondly, we think it creates good retention. When a campus selling point is that they can make good work field for students, it is going to be by default the best educational system for people who want to actively work. The issue is, on opposition side, this is not incentivized. On our side, when people are put into work fields, the incentive is going to be on whether or not they can create more work fields, therefore creating competition between campus. Controllable impact is the end here. Our side, you're forced to learn and adapt and make sure that you are a good quality worker. Opposition can argue that it's applicable, but this is contingent on everything that is external. Thank you.
All right, thank you to Prime Minister for that speech. Next, we have Leader of Opposition.
Oh, tadi nggak pakai timer ya? Tadi pakai bell ya jadinya ya? Untuk timer. Ah, oke. Tes, oke. Before going to my arguments, first we have to clear the debate. What is the burden towards the government, right? Your job is to defend why capstone projects why internships are that crucial, or why it is the right measurement to evaluate the quality of these university students every semester. Understand that there is limitations to the students as well as the universities, and that is something that is the character analysis that is very missing in OG. First, our team identity is clear. What do we want? We believe that written exams or capstone projects is the right measurement to evaluate the quality of these university students. If we can prove this, closing can't win because of an extension, because our burden is the principal argument that will be the prerequisite for all practicalities coming later on. But first, your OG's argument talks about this is a good quality check of students. However, understand what is the kind of university students there are. First, there are vulnerable actors that we want to protect, right? These people are those who find it hard to socialize, for example. It's very hard for them to fit in as students. Those who are still shy about their abilities because they are still students. Why when then these actors are important to include, right? Because these students deserve a chance also where they prove their talents and skills without the necessity of human-to-human interaction. But I'm still going to explain why then these written exams is the prerequisite to show that you have a good quality or you have understood all of your class materials as you graduate, right? Understand as well that for so long in the status quo, papers and theses have been used to evaluate students because of its accessibility, and that is fair towards all students. For example, you can finish the exam at home and submit it online. You can do it at campus and you can give it to your professor. Compared to internships, it's highly contingent whether the students are able to find a good internship place and able to intern then for them in 1 month or 3 months, right? What about those who has less accessibility, where maybe it's because of how far it is, maybe I don't have the energy to do that, I don't have time to always go to the internship workplace every day for 3 months, right? So understand that that is a key framing that we want to prove, right? We're trying to debate that which narrative is better to evaluate these university students. Now going on to the principal argument why the standardization of written exams is so crucial. What is the goal of semester evaluation, right? It's to test the quality of their students, whether they have understood the class materials. These students have paid for the university tuition, right? That's the entire point of them going to universities. They want to test whether whatever I have paid, I have received all of those class materials from my professor. The medium of essays and papers is exactly that common understanding that is crucially and only exclusive on our side. That is why it's principally justified and has been standardized. For example, since I'm an economy student, I have to write a minimum of 3-page essay on macroeconomics. This is the same for everyone in my year. This is exactly why this common understanding is crucial, right? It's easier for professors to test whether this student has received enough class materials, whether they have to graduate to the next class or the next semester or not. This is exactly why it's also contingent and perfectly fitted on their major, right? Compared to your side, the evaluation and scoring of each student's internship will be so diverse, it would be hard to create a universal scoring guide for the professors. Understand that it's not only thinking about the students as well. How are you going to think about the accessibility to these professors, right? They would have a very hard time to control which students actually not deserve, but more of like which one is fit to graduate, go to the next class, or graduate on undergrad, or maybe those who still need to do more evaluation in their written paper or maybe in their class materials, right? This is why it's so important for university students to create the standardization. The goal of teachers is to check whether they have understood this, especially when students have given their time, their money to understand, to come to classes. In your side, this is the change of narrative that is very detrimental, right? And that is something that is very missing. You have to explain what is the change of behavior that is happening in students. Now, when students understand that that teachers are only gonna check about their internship, they wouldn't go to class. They would rather just skip classes because I can just read the class materials, and even if I'm gonna do the end of semester evaluation, I don't need to do that good in that written exam because I'm just gonna ace that internship. And it's easy. If I'm close to this, if I'm close to the higher ups, if I know the people over there, if I'm friendly, and if I do enough job, then I can get that A in that internship, right? But understand that level of internship is so different. For example, if I'm a law student, I'm interning at MCA, right? It's gonna be harder for students who are interning in a small law firm. Does that correlate to you being good? What if the teachers, because they don't have the universal guidance scoring, they would only rather graduate or allow students to get an A when the internship place is actually objectively great? And that is why it's so dangerous, right? Teachers or other students would prefer to intern to a place where it's much more cooler, much more popular, where it can actually elevate your status compared to the quality of the kind of job you are doing, right? That is why standardization is so important and why our principal argument is so important, right? And another comparative that is so detrimental in your side is, when you make a mistake when you are interning, it can be something that is, you can sacrifice your future opportunities, right? When you want to apply to work there, if you did a mistake, either the workplace wouldn't allow you to be accepted, or maybe because you're embarrassed to work there because of the past that you did, right? In our side, even if you do a mistake, the impact of harm is much more smaller. Why? Because it's on the grades, it's on the numerical data, right? Even if your grades are bad in our worst case scenario, in the status quo, it has been shown that there are factors where you can still get accepted to a good workplace, right? For example, with the additional of certificates and organization experience, right? There is no urgency in OG explaining why the standardization of evaluating university students every semester should be changed into the narrative of using internships rather than defending rather than using the status quo that is already enough, that written exams already proved you that even if you only know the general knowledge, even if you know the theories, at the very least you have proven this much. It's exactly the same as burden, right? You have proved enough burden that, hey, I went to macroeconomics, you taught me for 4 months, for 2 months, I understood all of the class materials, and this is my work, with the extra exclusivity that you can actually use that creativity that is going to happen. Proud to oppose. Thank you.
All right, I thank the leader of opposition for that speech. Now I'm calling upon Deputy Prime Minister. For all debaters, engagement through POI is highly encouraged. Check.
Can I borrow your phone? Just a quick trigger warning. There will be a quite sensitive topic as you as well for a university student. All right. If you listen well, OO's case is exactly the reason why university students were being mocked as kuliah adalah nongkrong dengan gaya selama 4 tahun. Exactly because university graduates thousands of students every year. I mean like twice a year approximately, but rarely get a job. This is the reason why MBKM is also exists in the very first place, to make sure that your knowledge, your education that you've got for the past 4 years won't go for a waste. Now, you should understand that in the status quo itself, for you to be able to get a job is very hard, and the requirements is insanely high, that you need to be able to have some kind of maybe 2 years of experience and whatnot, right? Now, on our side, that we want to make sure that once this student get out or maybe graduates from the university, they will be basically having an impact, direct impact, and you should weigh on the direct impact towards the society, as this is also was mentioned on my first speaker speech. Now, why this is a necessity? Regardless of willpower, hardship, etc. of students, we need to do it. Notice how OG would like to argue it is far east of access. B, regardless of this, they will have to work eventually. C, we provide the first step, because exactly once you get out from the university, you will be in direct contact with the community, and maybe at some point, whatever you have learned in classroom might quote unquote backlashing with the society, with the condition of the society. Now, by this logic and by this short explanation, you should weigh into, as a university student, which one is very important, being a book smart or being a street smart? Because being a book smart means you get a higher score, you get a perfect mark, you get straight A's or whatever it is. You're being a renaissance if it is in a Sims 4, right? But when you're going out, like directly making impact to the society, you're basically doing the work. You're not just practicing, but you also engaging, and this will also train your problem-solving skill and everything it is, right? If the opposition side of the house trying to tell you that, oh, the learning process is what important, we think that, and we would like to argue that you could also learn in this work field and basically having it a direct evaluation in the end of the day, right? Because one, if it is just written test on whatsoever it is, maybe like thesis or scriptsy that I'm currently doing, the score is just basically on the paper. Like this is the people have different perception on getting A's. Maybe like for some example, getting A's in anthropology isn't as hard as getting A's in medicine or whatsoever it is, right? Now, the student incentive to going to campus is basically to learn, based in just that, right? But we need to give just a little bit knock of a realization that you're just not to learn in the society. Your parents sent you to the university to make sure that you'll be a better human being after you graduate. Now, this better human being is also shaped because of the social skill that is being built, upon your direct contribution towards the community. And next one, why test standardization changes student to be binary? A, don't argue as if students are as dumb to skip class because they get the force and they have the realization that, oh, my parents already paid for my tuition, and then what I just need to do is basically to do the best at the class. B, they have many skills, exactly because intern is diverse and creates benefit. Now, because this house prefer motion, when a university prefers internship and fellowship and whatsoever it is, this will become a norm. This will become something that is basically a norm. It can become something that is common in the university student community, right? Now, what does this do? It kills any possibility of standardization of tests to be useful. Now, what Andre has brought into this debate. Firstly, this is an external versus internal projection kind of debate. You see, research, thesis, and all that jazz are basically a quantifiable aspect of achievement for the student and the university. University only. Not to say that this is bad, but it is less important if you compare it with what the motion wants. Even if we must see it from the student's perspective, you should know that university scoring is also based on the alumni and their contribution towards the community. Exactly why UI is better than USU, because UI has graduated notable students and useful person for the community. Example like Najwa Shihab, Sri Mulyani, or whatsoever it is, right? What you should assess from a university is not their image or reputation only, or the major they offer, or just a mere diploma certification. It is a debate on whether or not the university succeeded to educate their students and make a direct impact to the community. In terms of alumni, a university is also being monitored by the ministry and the people. So, at worst, if these alumni are doing nothing or create bad impact to the society, their degree could be taken off from them. Sure. Also, the university image will be declining as accreditation in and on itself is the pinnacle of a university. Now, Now, at best, university have quote-unquote lifelong responsibility to their alumni. Henceforth, they should educate them well because this is symmetrical with the accreditation and profit they will get. Example, BINUS University regulation where you would get dropped out if you are cheating in your test. This is important to make sure the student understands their knowledge well. This implicates when students understand the knowledge, the execution won't be as hard, but again, the execution of knowledge is very contingent on whether or not you're engaging in the outside classroom activity on whatsoever, and when they're doing the real life work. Also worried about the money and the accessibility. You need to understand this, When you're doing internship, you'd get paid in the end of the day, right? Even if you're trying to say that, oh, but now the status quo that there is a lot of internship that doesn't get paid. Basically, that is just a modern day slavery, and the ministry also has a regulation for this internship to be get paid. You cannot debate on that. Secondly, because this house prefer motion. In the end of the day, that it is better for you to choose the internship and fellowship over the thesis and whatsoever it is, because the impact is non-controllable and much more visible on our side. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deputy Prime Minister, for that speech. Now I'm calling upon Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Check. Trigger warning, I will be talking about a lot of sensitive issue, especially that happening in the status quo. For every single month, I have to pay for my UKT, which is quite expensive, right? But understand the delta here. When I pay something that obviously I want something in return, that is the reason why my university put me in this place in NUDC 2024, because I have the incentive. They have the incentive to educate me in the end of the day, right? So what's the delta here? We think that when government, the interaction is different in a sense that the one who are obliged to do the work are you as a student, as an individual towards a particular corporation, right? Therefore, there is no incentive coming from the corporation in order to make you educated. But understand why are we standing right here in the National University Debating Championship? Because exactly as a university student, I want to be educated. I want to get a theoretical advantage, and as to how I become as a law student, I want to know, I want to apply my theory into practicality. But exactly the prerequisite of you to get a particular job or a good job to begin with is to have a certain knowledge about law, a certain knowledge that I can apply into my practicalities in the end of the day. So let's engage into the entire case of opening government then. I think that one simple mistake that OG or maybe CG will bring is that they fail to analyze the motion, right? We are not debating on whether or not internship is good or bad in the end of the day, but we are debating on how the parameter of a certain evaluation of the end of the semester, whether it should be internship or whether or not it should be a classwork experience, right? So therefore, their argument is not exclusive, because exactly if you want to have internship, that can still happen in our side of the house. Maybe you can do it during the summer breaks, for example, right? What we want to oppose is somehow it's going to become an evaluation, because it is not in line with the interest of how the students are coming into university to begin with, in order to get the theory. But yeah, I'm going to prove to you why this real world skills will also happening better in our side of the house. But yeah, when we are talking about how it's going to value the campus alignment, I don't think that's the case, because students might get good marks due to get bad marks due to few reasons. Number one, students might fail to understand the material, but secondly, I think that students fail to study hard due to external factors such as mental blockage and so on and so forth. But let's delve into the delta. The so-called students with bad grades that they want to push can still ask for feedbacks or study harder in order to get better marks in the next semester. But what's the comparison in OG? Internships or fellowships is something that is temporary, i.e. it's only like 3 to 6 months contracts, for example, like what's happening in MSEB, even if there is like a dosen pembimbing and so on and so forth. But in the end of the day, the one who is going to assess you is your assessor or your higher ups to begin with. We think that if these interns get bad evaluation, then most likely the companies such as ULIP or such as Unilever, for example, will not prolong the contract. Therefore, therefore, the result of the student is to find another internship place, right? Therefore, the practicalities will not go around in their side of the house. Therefore, no incentive for the previous internship place to educate the students in the end of the day after they cut the contract, right? But what's the comparative? Since university are obliged to make sure that students are being well educated because students are paying tuitions to begin with, right? Therefore, there's an incentive for the university to evaluate the curriculum or classroom experience whenever the end of the semester results are out. Maybe if the results are very average or bad to begin with, now the university has to think, what can I do to improve in the next semester, right? Because exactly there's also contingent upon they want to get good accreditation to begin with, right? Because the dictee will ask how is your marks, and then exactly they're going to evaluate even to the point where the lecturer are going to be evaluated in the end of the day. But yeah, secondly, on how engaging to the whole case about it is university is somehow the gateway for a real world application, right? Understand that university is the gateway for real world application, but the prerequisite for you to be able to compete in workforce is to know or to have the knowledge or theory about a particular subject that is exclusively can happen achieved by written exams or capstone project. Why? Because when we're talking about written test, precisely because before a written test, there is a classes by professional lecturers that has the obligation to educate these people, right? Unlike in internship, where it is a much more like a workplace kind of psychological connection in their side of the house, right? So the bosses has the interest to extort you or to exploit your work in order to get good work in the end of the day, unlike in our side of the house. But thirdly, about the applicability of university or how it's going to be better for university, we think that the status quo also caters for students who want to engage in activities that is boost their skills outside the classroom. Two things, i.e. clubs or student activities that boost the students' practical skills. But secondly, student body or programs such as Youth Leaders Initiative that boost their leadership skills to begin with, which can go hand in hand with written exams, right? But yeah, let's talk about the comparative then. This is also my substantive. Now, we think that on the comparative on internship or fellowship, the result of the end near semester will be in the beginning of unfair parameter. What's problematic about internships or fellowship? For university students, it's the overemphasis of human-to-human favoritism or interaction. Interns are more likely to get good marks based on the relationship with their supervisor of higher ups, because the corporate culture values human interaction more than theory or knowledge. But even if government want to argue that interns or fellowship are being assessed of their work, we think that's problematic as well, because a person might get a good at doing something, but they fail to gain the theoretical knowledge, right? Even if they still get theoretical knowledge through mandatory online classes, for example, or reading books every single day, but we think that's practically harmful, because A, you don't get awarded or get any incentive if you are studying your theory, but secondly, you will be so tired because internships are happening for like 5 working days, for example, and the level of workload of it, which is very high because it is exactly due to the corporate culture. Therefore, it will make your deprioritization of theoretical, which is going to be inherently very harmful for university, because university also have the interest to make sure that my students are smart, not only in terms of the practicality, but also the knowledge in the end of the day, because they are responsible to the dictee or the Minister of Education, for example, right? But let's talk about my second extension, right? Why is it harmful for vulnerable people? We think that which are vulnerable actor that we have to talk about? Students who are mediocre in terms of studying, or students who come from a less popular university, for example, right? Who are struggling in terms of understanding their major. Understand the barrier of entry internship or fellowship is very big. I.e., certain big companies only wants to hire an intern who came from a specific major university, right? So barrier of entry is much worse in their side of the house. This created a major gap because each companies or fellowship has a different quality of internship experience and metrics of judgment and evaluation, right? Therefore, when they're talking about how somehow there is an alumni degree alumni connection, that is not exclusive, because exactly that also can happen in your side of the house, especially when companies such as big law firms only want to accept OE students, for example, right? And what's the comparative on our side? Even if there is a barrier of entry in the workforce, but at least when we are talking about workforce, the thing that they can assess is not only the practicalities, but they can assess whether or not this particular student is smart or not, or can understand the theoretical that happening in the previous university, regardless of the names of the university itself, right? Therefore, the level of judgment in the workforce is very much unique in our side of the house, right? Therefore, what's the narrative that is going to happen in government side of the house is that university students will act as a slave of capitalism, right? In a sense that they are going to be valued or how many work or the quality of work that they have done towards cooperation, rather than in our side, which is focused more on university. Very proud to oppose.
Thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Now to the closing half, please welcome the Member of Government.
to understand the debate completely, let's engage of what actually being compared in this debate. We think that in internship, it focused mainly on practicality, about how that when you actually in an internship, you will be supervised. It is about like real life experience, about how that, oh, it can be looks like you're working at companies or like you're assistant of a professor project. We think that this kind of thing, when it becomes a method of like evaluation, obviously it will be set as an uni, about how the government will be intervened, about how that all of the university will be engaged to this. This is exactly like eliminate three things about how that, oh, any argument saying that, oh, they will be get internship to bad companies will not be happen because it is set by the uni, but also to eliminate any arguments about accessibility because it is set by the uni itself. You exactly pay UKT, this is the pay release that they can do. But three, it also eliminate any arguments about saying that, oh, least popular university will not get any good companies because government will ensure that you at the very least will be equalized about this internship because this will be implemented to every university. But also to what is the written exams that we define of. We think that it is exactly like a theoretical base of tests about how that, oh, this is something like written exams, you answer some questions, exams, these kind of things. But here's the thing. Most majors also needs technicality. Exactly how like civil workers, they need to learn about how to make concretes, not just like learn the theory behind the make concretes. About how architecture, you need to actually learn how to make building within the architect, not just like learning the theory of like green buildings. This is exactly why we think that when it comes to the evaluation, you actually need this kind of thing. That's why we propose these motions. Three arguments that I'll bring. Get into the first one. Why it is something that is justified. We think that when we're talking about an evaluation, semester metrics of evaluation, we think that we need to care about the practicality because of how they can implement the theory that they already learned in real life. It's not just like in the written exams, about how that there is certain things that you need actually to be implemented. This is important because how comprehensive you actually understand will be reflected on how you act based on the jobs that you will given. This is a better matrix because how well they perform or like minor and major mistakes will be seen immediately due to the supervision that will exist within the internship. Understand that the highest form of understanding is the implementation. Exactly like you watch, like Mikofi took all of that video just learn all of this debate theory, doesn't mean that you will debate perfectly. This is exactly why that when you want to understand something, you will need implementation, you will need to be good at it. We think that exactly that when we are talking about internship like these all companies, they will exactly like makes you not like back because they will be more strict, more elaboration later. But also too, if they argue that, oh, these students might be not prepared, they might are not prepared for this kind of internship, about how there might be a failure. We think that this kind of failure is on them, not the method. Exactly that the intern will be dependent to their level, about how like, oh, early semester, like minor jobs, focus on watching of what they do. End of semester, there will be like given jobs, this kind of things. This makes sense because they will adjust what they've learned. Exactly me as an architecture student was told like, oh, you just need to collect data as you are still early in your architecture learning over like building a big building in the early semester. Exactly why that the minor and major will be still adjust because like they actually care about how far you've been learning the theory in itself. But then three, why capstone projects specifically on the end evaluation is not as good as implementation. They might argue that, oh, these kind of things can be part of contribution, as how like, oh, you contribute to your uni, like given essays, script sheet, this kind of things. But we think that this is inexclusive. Because understand that when you act as a good intern, when working, it's still a contribution to like education or uni in general, because you're making good image for them, right? Because you're like bringing your uni names to these kind of things. And also when they come to these work fields, it gives standard of what the work field looks like because they actually learn and see like, oh, this is how the debate feels. This is how like working in the law permissive feels. It is exactly why that when you actually introduce this kind of things earlier to them, they will be more habituated with what they will be working on. But also, we also think that this is act as natural selections for the students, which one is prepared and which one or not. We think that it is exactly why when they are talking about, oh, the quality of the students will be different and anything. This is exactly why they will force the unit to actually increase the quality, because this is about like how they will be perceived in the public, right? They will like get into these companies, they will get an objective view, meaning that it eliminates of how you fully cheating, because it is really depends on you. With also too that it is have a better liability, right? Because you are put with the burden of responsibility. About how that, in the as an assistant of professor projects, you matter. You actually have the certain responsibility that will demand you to actually learn and put effort. They might also argue, internship will be easy because I can ace this internship because I have the connections. I actually know the CEO of this companies, for example. We think that connections or not, people are pragmatics, right? About how that they still care about money. About how that, they still care about how the image of the companies they will look like, about how the survivability of the companies will look like. Exactly why that the tricks that will happen within the internship will happen regardless, because they still care about this. Imagine that when you are like the CEO of the company and like the people seeing you as, this company is easy to intern because they give you easy scores. Obviously they will get bad image and they will more likely to not wanting that kind of thing to happen. This is exactly why that when you are arguing the internship will be much more easier, no. Exactly that this kind of people actually cares about their companies and their image. They will become more stricter to you. But then also, we think that why this is not a good metrics for evaluation, because this is an easier to cheat. We understand that this is very worst case, but here's the thing. We think that when you talk about script essay, there is a ton of alternative like to cheat, like Jockey, like exactly that essays are not supervised. This is like independent study. These Jockey surveys are hard to regulate. They even dare to comment on like Kemendikbud accounts. These kind of things exist in their side. When this happens, you cannot regulate these kind of things, meaning that there is still a chance for you like to be cheated in their side. When these kind of things exist, we want to prevent it. That is exactly why we want to change the system. We want to prevent this kind of students to actually not doing something bad, and that is exactly why we are very proud to propose. Thank you.
All right, I thank the member of government for that speech. Now I'm calling upon member of the opposition.
Gender preference, she, her? Okay. Both of the opening debate are missing on how these evaluations are applied in real world, which this is CO only contribute. This is gonna be the most important contribution by CO that I will gonna explain later. We are talking here about evaluation, meaning we have to know how both of this internship or SI parameter to actually evaluate the student and why their parameter is good or bad. And this is also not be provided by both of the opening teams. In CG, they are kind of derivative of from OG, so we're gonna prove the government team as the whole bench. Let's see how opening government here. OG not actually provide on how they actually gonna do this evaluation in real work based on how good their work, but it's gonna be subjective, right? It's gonna be depends on your own supervisor. So this proof how ineffective of internship or as an evaluation measure. Kuliah 4 tahun nongkrong bergaya still exists in government side because internship is also for last semester, meaning OG harm is not actually exclusive in our side of the house. But let's see, what's the problem here? Internship or fellowship is how you actually relying on external factors to evaluate you where like you in your superior in company. Therefore, it's based on how you actually can satisfy the wants of the person. This is problematic because as a student of last year, it's about how you work process from the start, from your first semester until the end. Our goal here is simple. We want to stay as status quo right now and believe this is more effective and right as a point of view of the uni and student itself. What we're gonna prove? The first one, why parameter of internship is unclear. The second one, what is actually the purpose of education. And the third one, why regardless how they do this, it's the benefit from the student itself. Realize internship why parameter is unclear? Internship, you go to the company resources place. You are as a anak magang. You have superior to actually handle by you, right? These are the superior that gonna be evaluate you themselves. It's mean in Gov side, it's not about you actually can apply your knowledge, but likely how you satisfy your superior. The problem, company like etc. mostly based on relation as the closest. It's likely to can be easy to be fake. Like AI, you can work in your family company and something like that. It's likely gonna be happen in their side of the house. Uni cannot check backgrounds of each company related or not with student, right? So it's not effective to begin with. It is likely gonna be happen and easy to actually manipulate, and it's more harming to government side of the house. Realize we also talk about human as a supervisor and the one who actually did. They are satisfied by two things, work and attitude. Your internship or fellow are gonna be satisfied by both, right? Of that in order to survive. So it's gonna be harder for burden of this mahasiswa to actually satisfy the work, to actually bring good and satisfy your attitude to this supervisor to actually you can be, oh my god, that anak magang is cute, I'm gonna give them A. That's not gonna be happen, right? Why it's harming? First, you're not gonna focusing on your education, it's to gain to knowledge, but how you actually makes people like you. Company also has many interests. It's gonna be hard for them to actually take care of this anak magang and knows about them that actually they can use their knowledge better. I.e. lots of internship not give you the tasks that actually in line with education. Like you told, lot of anak magang are told to make coffee, print this and print like that. So it's not going to be in line, not going to be effective. So realize also the company also doesn't not going to trust you yet because what this you just a uni student narrative. Company cannot gamble this yourself to actually give the trust about their, because what the gambling, their profits, their image on how they actually work, right? So it's not likely going to be effective. But how academic parameter in our side of the house are clear. The first one, you actually have the structure to write the background, something like that. It's easy to, you know, oh my god, from the backgrounds, oh, they are wrong, something like that. It's already have a structure that really clear that you actually can evaluate this. And the second one, you actually can easy to evaluate the content inside of this can be evaluated at the depth of analysis or something like that. We have the rules and already happening in a really long time, meaning this is already effective and this is really important to keep them as it is. But let's see how actually paper works in line with how actually paper works in our side of the house. This is not just finished, it's like OG said. They have a long process around 6 months, that's why this is still needs an effort to do this. This process of analysis are new from CO and prove to you how actually this applied this essay based on evaluation. How paper works. You need commitment, disciplines, critical thinking. Just finish it. Also commitment, willing to end it from your started, right? How it actually works. The first one, you have to find a title, which lot of evaluation 3 or 4 times. Because what? This title also gonna be based on your interest or cases in the real world. And then after that, what? You create the first one, the background. It also have a lot of evaluation from your lectures, right? It's pushing you to have critical thinking, knowing about the situation in status quo, how you actually can provide this and make this to the world itself. It's really hard to begin it. The way you think, the way you see the world, and you have to push this in the words, right? This is important for the critical thinkingness and how you actually can apply this kind of things that you already run from this from years to educate. And the second one, and then you actually have the presentation before this, meaning you actually get evaluated by more 5 lectures or more to actually knowing you, do you really understand about what you write? Do you already know what is the allure of your paper? This is really important. It's actually evaluate the depth of understanding about the understatement, meaning we in our side we already as effective as possible and push the student to actually know what they actually do. The second one, the last one, you actually have sidang, so meaning you actually evaluate again, and you can be not graduate still. You can likely to be not graduate by this because this is gonna be important. So here we're gonna push you the first quality of the paper and the second one quality of the student as the parameter on how they are gonna be evaluated. They have a lot of complex process which more once by one, not super. It's more one by one and not going to be suffices a lot of students like in the magang. It's going to be more effective and focusing on each student itself. Why research output better? It's going to be used to make decision because you learn to find problems, analyze, and conclusion. It's learned on problem solving which company needs. And why likely you not going to be treated like the company? The graduates are represent the name of the university. They have interest to make their graduates to have quality and in work of theories. Likely, evaluate these are harder and going to strictly because they don't want to damage their image in a work in the industry, right? If you want to work or study like how they proposed by the government, you can just go to workshop internship they provide by external organization, like how a lot of our company like Astra provide internship for general people that include MT, managing training for 3 or 5 months. So actually just go there. This education to get title of bachelor, that's why I have to provide academic base in order to evaluate. This is gonna be class with CG. In our worst case, they use other person to write their essay. They still need to understand what they wrote in order to graduate. At least in our side, we still push students to actually learn and educate themselves and actually know about what is the first year that you already passed. Do you actually understand what is, like, i.e. your communication student? Do you understand what is the theory of communication? This is really important in order to know you are joining in university, an institution of education. Meaning at the end of your last semester, you should know about what is the purpose of education itself. In conclusion, one, we give more clear parameter about evaluation. The second one, process analysis on how SI is better. We succeed to fill in the gap of OO and prove why we win from government bench, and proud to oppose.
All right, I thank the member of opposition for that speech. Now calling upon the government whip to close government's case. I think just put the phone there.
Tes. Halo. Okay. Both opposition case relies on the fact that they think an assumption that whatever internship or fellowship we have no correlation at all with the major that we are majoring. They think this parameter of evaluating never makes sense because, oh, it is more on like external factors on your internship, on your fellowship, whatever happened in that side. But understand, when Hafiz mechanized this, how the fellowship and internship work at the very first place, we think this still evaluative method is still works at the very end of the day because it evaluates whatever theory you have and put it into practical benefits and practical, like whatever situation you have in the fellowship. That's why it's still evaluative method that is still going to be justified. I'm going to do like clash to all teams and why proof CG will win this case based on that mechanization itself. Let's see on the opposition, let's see on OO first. OO mainly talks about three things. First, they want to protect the vulnerable actor of shy and mediocrity student. And second, they want to champion accessibility for all people. And three, on the principality, whether or not they understand this at the very first place, and they said this is exclusive because on our side, there's a lot of external factors like if closer to higher apps, and second, harmful if not award, it is very harmful if they are not awarded. First, they want to protect the vulnerable actors, shy and mediocrity. First thing, they never justify why we need to cater to specifically to these people in itself. When the uni itself want to cater to all students and exactly when the progressivity on all students on their workforce in itself. That's why shy and mediocrity should not be kept in this debate. In our side, yes, they still have to go out and do internship every end of semester of the year. This is our progressivity that we want for uni standard at the very first place. Like every semester, they need to do this internship, they need to do this fellowship. That's why shy and mediocrity will still be catered for and will be learned for in our side. There will still be progressivity to actually be better in the workforce later on. That's why if they said this the champion about pressure, well, pressure exists regardless in life. Pressure regardless exists in like the workforce. That's why if we pressure them now and we actually progressivity with this pressure, that's why shy and mediocrity will still be catered for and will still be better in our side rather than keeping them shy and mediocre. Let's weigh this. If we cater their concern of their vulnerable actor, by the way, and not only that, we also cater to the whole of uni student of graduating without knowing how to work in their side. This is why this is exclusive in our side. And second, about accessibility. Again, without this mechanization, they assume that uni did not have the capability to search for an internship place. Understand, our mechanization is very clear from Hafiz, right? How uni will actually assign you to a certain a certain company, a certain law firm in their side, which is why equality of like accessibility on how you work at a certain internship or fellowship will still be assessed in our side because uni will actually assign you to in the very first place. Even at worst case that they are restricted by location, what they said, or limited choice, if that was available in that one in itself, that's why at the very first place it will be equal. That's why, sure, no gap of accessibility will exist on our side, because if that in the very first place, in what available in that if that available in that location, and then there's no gap of accessibility in itself. If they're concerned about competing with other uni, the thing is there's still other metrics, right? But the thing is, like in your side, why Capstone is able to do this in the first place, never mechanized in your side. Which is why, if we weigh this, we already explained how in mechanization the accessibility will still be there, because uni will actually assign you to this place, and that's why if people pick and choose whatever assignment that, whatever internship assignment that you choose, that's why accessibility happens. But since the mechanization about how uni assign you to a certain fellowship or internship, that's why accessibility will still be existing on our side. And the last thing about principality, whether or not they understand exclusivity, they understand the learning thing or not. This case assume that our internship and fellowship process have no correlation whatsoever with our major. They understand uni sees this as evaluation method, right? This is what the motion said. Of course, uni will cater this student into a certain fellowship that of course have some correlation with that major or certain matkul. That's why the evaluation method will still be there. How this will be a great evaluation method? HAP is already mechanized, because they do HAP is already framed and mechanized about how practicality, to do the practicality, you need to understand the theories in itself first. That's why this is very intuitive. I'm not going to explain more. The thing is, if they're concerned about how there's external factors like closer with higher ups, we understand two things. First, you are not a full-time worker. Two, you are there under the connotation of you are being tested, right? Which means the professional sphere of you are getting tested right there in the very first place will still be there. That's why getting closer to higher ups and other external factors won't be there. Which is why, if they're concerned also about not being awarded, we believe awarded is there. First, money. That's why you internship because of money. Second, if money isn't there, validation from your higher up is still there. That's why validation of professionality from your higher up will still become a reward. That's why we proven how this means that it's not that this is a justification of how this become a evaluative method, and their concern have been dismissed upon. Let's go to CO. CO mainly about two things. Again, same thing about external factors, and second about how the evaluation of semester is more strict on our side. That's why it's better on our side. Let's take the external factors. Same thing with OO, right? This is very derivative. That's why I'm going to spend less time on this. This is very less likely, I've said before, because why? They are interns, like they have different connotation than full-time workers. That's why if you have different than full-time workers, this closeness will be different, and after all, they will strictly be professional. And HAP has already mechanized this, how in like the evaluation method, there will be a strict parameter on how you are going to be tested. There are going to be standard parameter of what being scored. This avoid any subjectivity and bias and connection in your side, which means there will also be mandatory comments from the supervisor into those internship as well. This is a form of evaluation that we are championing. The view from company to you as a student from uni on how you are going to work in the workforce later on. That's why let's attack the second case about evaluation of a semester is more strictly in your side. They're championing how learn and educate, which means what are you doing in the 4 years of your being uni? You are learning and educate, right? You have more time to learn and educate yourself, less than you have time to actually work in the real internship or fellowship. That's why you want to propose this motion to you, because you already have time to learn and educate in your side. We don't understand why you want more incentive to learn and educate when you have already much more time to actually learn and educate in your side, which is why you don't understand the urgency about learn and educate when you already have much time to learn and educate. That's why we want to work in the first place in internship to actually learn about the things that we need to learn to work in the workforce. Now, last thing, why CG wins over OG? Sure, OG has a lot of harm and benefits that could be credited, but the thing is, their case is so easy to be rebutted by the CO and OO because it's missing one thing, their mechanization on how to do the internship in the very first place. That's why OO at the very first place and CO at the very first place can come into OG and question their metrics on how they're going to be evaluated in the first place. That's why they're concerned about how there's going to be a lot of external factors still stand if you go from OG. That's why in CG, if we mechanize how the parameter of it's going to be strictly professional on how to be the relationship with subjectivity won't be there. That's why CG wins this case overall. And not about that, we also focus on how this is an evaluative method and not just focus for the uni. Thank you.
All right, I thank the government whip for that speech. Now to close this debate, opposition whip, please welcome.
This is not a debate about which is going to help people who are not able to save people who are not able to do internships because they're shy. This is also not a debate about which university has the most interest to teach you things. Yes, you pay them, but that means that internships could be a valid way to teach you instead of being able to evaluate. We think this is a valid way to teach, but not to evaluate. The reason why opening is hard to judge is exactly because they focus on ideas that suddenly on one side, they will be executed badly. We think regardless of the execution, the output is only going to be better when you're failing in internships. This is going to help us clash in the interest of students, exactly what government is going to bring, and I'm going to bring it later. But first, I'm going to weigh and strengthen my first speaker's contribution. Unclear parameter. Why? We think it depends on how charitable the company is. It means that there's no also any supervisor that comes from the university to tell you how you did. That means that it's unlikely for you to know how well your students are doing. This means that this is harder for companies to reach into consensus onto what parameter exactly because the companies are differing on one in each another, because exactly there are so many organizations that has to be keep in line. Notice how this does not continge on like OO's bad interests of bad students and bad bosses. It is on the internal mechanism that the government never really picturized in the very first place. In my first speaker, we tell you that exactly because it is evaluated by one institution and not many, it is easier for them to go into consensus. It is evaluation by your teachers, by your lecturers, and by presentation. Yes, OG.
So basically, Socrates students and his students is also just learn about theory only, and they get judged by the society because they're just discussing as scholars would do. And your side is just the same, and the bias of scholars where they did everything while they are not is already being mentioned on Andre's speech.
You never tell us the exclusivity part of your evaluation. We think internship exists in both sides of the benches. That means that the exclusivity that exists must be on the evaluation itself. You never prove that. Second, why is it justified to base it on theories? Evaluation should play under one parameter, even if that parameter causes you to have bad result. We think this is an existing parameter that is better. We think a clearly existing parameter that causes you to have a bad result is better than a parameter that looks like it's doing well and giving better output into the society, but not really able then to know how to fix it in the university in the first place. We think the point of evaluation, the point of education is exactly to point out where your mistake is. Therefore, we're going to fulfill the burden of, oh, this evaluation is actually better in our side. This is the whole point of you having evaluation. It is to give clear feedback. If you're not able then to know which and why these kids are doing bad in the essays, that's why you're likely to not give you clear feedback. In our side, our first speaker have mechanized to you why then it's likely for you to give clear feedback exactly because you're able then to have kind of people looking at these kids. Look, CG and OG never really related back to the evaluation of this semester. This we think at least proves why we prove our BOP better. But right, that's second. Thirdly, this is a prefers motion. That means it continges and relies heavily onto the comparison, which will fulfill the student interest more. In OG, they say that students' interest is to work and applicate. We think that CG is quite derivative from OG in itself, and they never really then specifies on what evaluation or what mechanism they're going to propose and exactly what parameter this company is able going to pick. We think then in CO, the students' interest could also be focusing on the understanding materials first before they're working in the first place. We think that the students would think it's unfair that they're put into a position where internships are seen as a way for you to evaluate rather than an internship for you to actually experiment. We think internship does not exist for you to applicate right away. It is for you to actually have a taste. What happens if you're making it as a parameter to evaluate, what happens is that they're not likely to do it better. What will happen? They're likely to actually applicate better without fear of evaluation. That means they're likely to be more experimental. They're likely to push for better results. They're likely to push for better innovation. That's why it's likely for you to have better output even if it looks bad in our essays. Exactly because they have no fear of their evaluation in this internship in the very first place. The benefit of OG does not contingent itself to the evaluation but on the idea of this internship. The internship also exists. Their benefit is not exclusive. We think notice how a large part of OG's benefit only stands on the one specific parameter of what students need and what schools need. When they have no justification as to why that's the interest of the students, when we have told you clearly that the interest of the students actually want to be evaluated this way and not the other way, instead, saying that, everyone wants to applicate in that work. When in reality, people go into university not to only to work, but also to work in academia, things that interest them, go into journalists, that being able to actually know them better. No, not yet. Okay, the difference is then with this that we have a different analysis of the idea of mistakes. Yes, they mentioned mistakes, but the idea in their case is on the grace, on the worst case. In our side, this is why that it's bad on government. We flip their benefit. Exactly. We think that notice how then the responses on like CG never really kind of goes away from the idea that we are kind of going into our unclear parameter. Therefore, the idea that unclear parameter kind of still stands. They said that it's unlikely for you to have unclear parameter, but never really tell you the likelihood of it being clear in the very first place, saying that it's just able to. Therefore, it still stands that it still should be evaluated, because that's also one of the reasons why we go to universities. Look, we're able to go into workforce. We're able, because exactly we have internship, exactly, not just on universities, we have internship that gives you generally to those who are public. Exactly when my first speaker said, Astra gives you an internship when you are already able to, when you are already graduating. Therefore, internship is not even urgent in universities in the first place. Internship should be done even outside. That means that you don't have any urgency to actually put it into the students in the first place. We think that the weighing comes to this. Look, we prove to you a closer actual analysis, closer to the spirit of the motion. Therefore, this is an evaluation, not to just be directed into internship. Their benefit in government is not manifested. Look, you have more workers. Just because you have more workers, that doesn't mean you have more quality workers. Because as long as you're able then to make your boss happy, this is different from OO in framing, that's not going to actually go into good quality of the workers. Now, this is not going to help your economics or society either. They never link it back to exactly that. But we're going to link it back to that. Why is it the interest of the government? Why is it the interest of the university? We live in a society where research, journals, and essays are the backbone, bare bone of analysis for bigger companies to give better output. In macro level, it is when your economy is determined by whether or not some research is saying it's a good predictability for you to actually join in the first place, to invest in the first place. Exactly, this is more beneficial when you're able to have more students go up in and learn how to read journals in the first place. Therefore, this is a larger benefit on the impact of number. We have better benefit. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to all debaters in this round. You may wait outside. We'll be discussing here in this room. And we'll call you back really soon. Thank you.